with you all the progress that I made with my Carpenter Star quilt project that I'm working on. But what I said I'll do from the beginning is just show you all how I use graph paper to design my quilt projects before I get into the Carpenter Star. So this one is just something I drew out and I have read the R, then a W, and then the numbers that would represent a print. So then as I proceed, I would just count all the different numbers and letters to determine how much I needed of each print or each solid fabric. So that's one. Let's see. That's just something I drew out for a quilt project. This is something else I drew out, and that just tells me how many numbers and how many blocks I have for each letter in the design. This is something I showed you all the other night. So this is a design of half square triangles, and then down there is where I count the number of half square triangles for each block. So I'm just doing this before I get into my Carpenter Star. So this is the pinwheel quilt block on graph paper from the other night. This is some 60-degree triangle graph paper. You can find it online. I did have a book with graph paper, different types of graph paper in the back, but some kind of way I let the book get away from me. But I'm just showing you all that 60-degree graph paper is available. You could print it off online unless you have a book, and then of course you could just print it from the book. So this is something that I will be using for an upcoming placemat, and I'll just pull numbers in. For each number, I'll put it in the triangle. When you're working with 6-degree triangles, I was listening to a lady's video. I think her YouTube page is 55 Baby. She said going across with working with 6-degree triangles, when going across, the amount of triangles have to be in odd number, which seems to be true. And then for symmetry or purposes. And then what I found out on my own is that when you work with 6-degree triangles, the amount of triangles going down have to be even. So going across is supposed to be an odd number. Going down when working with 6-degree triangles is supposed to be an even number. So that's just something I work on. And what I have to do right here is just pull numbers for the different fabrics that I'll be working with. And then as I pull numbers, I'll just fill in a 6-degree triangle. So that's not what I'll be using. This something else that I'll be erasing and starting over again. I do need to print off some more 6-degree triangle. So this is 6-degree triangle. I know for the most part, people are used to working with squares like this graph paper right here. That's just something that we're used to working with. But 6-degree triangle paper is out there. Graph paper is out there. And like I said, you can print off online. If you see in a book, because I had an old quilt book that had different types of graph paper in there, I would just print it off, and use it like that. And as you come in, please make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions concerning quilting, you can just put them in the chat and I will answer them for you. But again, this here is 60-degree triangle graph paper. So that's something that is out there for the people who don't know. Okay, this is another little design I drew out on graph paper. I don't really buy these people's prints because the copyright issue irks me to no end. I don't need their prints or their patterns. I have been quilting 20 years, so I'm able to draw my designs out on graph paper. I am able to determine my yardage that I need. I already know how to do all that because I have been quilting for 20 years. I did recently do a live. I think it was at least like 2 lives I did concerning helping people determine how much yardage they need for quilting. And if you would like to check those out, you can do it. But it was from this week. You watch the videos, you will be able to have some idea of how to go about determine how much yardage is needed in your quilt. Okay, this is another little design I drew out on graph paper. And I'm just trying to encourage you all to design your own patterns out on graph paper and just save the money from just buying patterns unless that's just something you want to do. So this is, I think this is my last little graph sheet I have to show before I get into my Carpenter's square uh project. So yeah, so then I just do my little design, put the little whatever I want to put in the blocks for whatever print is going to go in that block on the quilt or in that spot. And then I would, write down how much, what size squares to cut. And then I count out my blocks and put the number down so I know how many blocks to cut of that print. So yeah, so I use lots and lots of graph paper in my quilting, in my designs. I just design my own stuff. I don't use these false prints. So now let us get into my carpenter square. And for the ones that's watching, I can just take this time to show off my little matchstick quilting. And matchstick quilting is something that's very easy to do. It's just quilting when you sew the lines close together. You get your walking foot and you just determine what spot or what little straight edge on your walking foot you want to use as a guide for your matchstick quilting. And this is the back of this little apple core pot holder, and then this is the front. And I really am proud of myself. This is my first time working with curve binding, and the thing about curve binding, as I have informed you all, and I'm just reiterating here, is to use curve bias strips to so that you can go around the curved edges. Okay, and I'll just give you all a close up. And I feel that it looks better on the back than it does on the front. And then here is the back again, and I just use these little clips to, fold over, hold my binding strip in place, and then I use the little straight pins for the mitered corners. Okay, so that's done. And I'm going to try to have this done by tomorrow for my morning live. I plan to do around 8:30. I mean 11:30 or somewhere around there. So this is my next little something I'm working on. This is what you call a carpenter square. Okay, it's 8 by 8. So this is one design that I just drew out on graph paper. And what I put up there? I guess I was putting up there what size blocks I was going to have to cut for my carpenter square project. So this is one design. And then I drew it bigger so I have it where I wouldn't have to hurt my eyes. So this is the bigger design of the Carpenter square. And over here, I just put Carpenter square, Carpenter star, not Carpenter square, Carpenter star. So this is the Carpenter star quilt design. Okay, and over here I put that it would be 8 by 8, which represents the 8 squares going across and then 8 squares going down. And again, if you want to see, this is the bigger version of my Carpenter's star quilt design, quilt block, whatever you want to call it. This is the Carpenter star. So this is the bigger version of what I drew, so I wouldn't have to hurt my eyes. And then this is the smaller version. And then the only difference that I'm seeing is that sometimes this is a light color and then this is a dark color. So it's three rows down. And then if you come right here, 3 rows down, that's a dark color and that's a light color. But right here is the light. This is my coding for the light squares, and this is my coding for the dark squares. So that third row right there, that's light, that's dark. And over here, this one is dark and this one is light. That's really the only difference. And, you know, that's the only difference I'm seeing in the way that it comes out in the design. So in this Carpenter square quilt block, I took it upon myself to develop or come up with the key. So what I did, if you look at the block, you see this is a block. So that's what you would call a solid block or background block. This is a half square triangle with the seam line going in this direction. And then this is my coding for my light colored blocks. This is a half square triangle with the seam line going in this direction for the dark color blocks. So if you look at the design, that's a bigger version. And then this is the smaller version of the Carpenter star quilt design, quilt block, whatever you all want to call it. Now this is the design that I made my key for. So I took it upon myself to make a key. So what I did was count how many blocks, how many solid blocks was in the quilt design, and I just counted them one by one, and I came out with a number. So this is the block that represents the blocks in this design, the background blocks. Or even though this is a smaller version, this is a background block. This is what I'm referring to, a solid block or a background block. Okay, so for the finished size of each square in this Carpenter square will be, I think, was it 1.25 inches. So it's the finished block. Finished size of each square, because this is going to be a 10-inch square mug rug when I get it sewn together. So the finished size of each square, because even though these are half square triangles, all the finished size of the blocks would be 1 1/4 inches. 1 1/4 inches. So for the blocks that are solid blocks, they're not half square triangles, the solid background blocks that are not half square triangles, I will be cutting, I have to add a 1/2 inch to this 1 1/4 inch, which is the finished size. So for my solid, this is my little key I developed or printed out or wrote out or drew out so I'll know how much of each block I need in the carpenter square, or I need to cut for my carpenter star. I keep saying square, a carpenter star. And this is the carpenter star right here. And as you come in, please make sure you like, share, subscribe to my channel. I really would appreciate it. So this is the smaller version of my carpenter star. This is the bigger version of my carpenter star. This is the version that I made my key for. So if you can look and see the differences of in the blocks. So this is a solid block. So that's just like a regular cut square. This is a solid block. So it's just a regular cut square. This is a 1/2 square triangle. This coating right here is for my printed fabric. So I have black fabric, printed fabric, and the fabric that's white in the background that has red America all over it. So that's what this 1/2 square triangle right here represents. So this is a 1/2 square triangle. So for my 1/2 square, for my solid squares, I will be cutting 1 3/4 inches because the finished size of the square is 1 1/4 inches. So you have to cut an extra 1/2 inch to make up, to compensate for the seam allowance. So this would be a cut at 1 3/4 inches for the finished size of each block, which is a 1 1/4 inches, because this mug rug will be a finished size of a 10-inch square. So it's 8 blocks across and 8 blocks going down. So when I took 10 and divided by 8, I came up with 1.25. That's how I came up with the finished size of each block being 1 1/4 inches. And I have to add a 1/2 inch on to make up for my 1/2 inch seam allowance, which makes for a regular block that's not a 1/2 square triangle. I will be cutting it at a 1 3/4 inches. Now we move over to this block here. This is a 1/2 square triangle. So for the 1/2 square triangles, I have to add another 1/2 inch onto the 1 3/4 inches. So then I came out with 2 1/4 inches. So for my 1/2 square triangles in this carpenter star, I will be cutting down the square at 2 1/4 inches. So this square here, I will cut it, the square going in this direction, because this is the way this seam line goes in this square. Okay, for this square here, I will be cutting it in this direction. Okay, when you working with 1/2 square triangles, whichever way this seam line goes in the design, it determines the direction in which you will cut this square. So then these are 1/2 square triangles for the background color. So for these, so where I will cut this square here at 1 3/4 inches, 3/4 inches, this here will be cut in the same size as all the 1/2 square triangles. The blocks for this 1/2 square solid or background 1/2 square triangles, they will be cut as the same as this block, because you're not there, the finish, you putting a seam, it has a seam this way. So you can't cut, even though this is a background square, you can cut the squares in the same size for this square as you would this square, because this seam line here is gonna it's gonna cause you to have to cut a bigger square for the solid or background half square triangles in this quilt design. So what I did was create a key, and I wrote out how much of each of these blocks is in this Carpenter square. Okay, so we have different types of, ways in which the half square triangles will be cut. So if you look here, this is a half square triangle where my printed fabric will go in this direction, or in this position. Okay, this is also, and then the seam line goes this way. This is a half square triangle where the seam line goes this way. So this is the direction you would have to cut this square, and then this solid here, this dark solid, or this pattern here or fabric here would go in, because this is going to be a black print, this is going to be a red print, and this is going to be a white print with red America all over it. So this is my black solid, and this is my red solid, and then this is my printed fabric. Okay, so this square will be cut in this direction, and then this half square triangle is positioned here. This half square triangle is positioned here. So you have to cut these squares in two directions. Okay, so this is the same as this. Okay, so you would cut this one this way, and then this one this way, and then this is a solid block again, and this is just a square again, and that's the end of it. Okay, so then let's come down to the second row. This is a regular cut square. This is a half square triangle. You're going to cut this block in this direction, and then this half square will go here, and that half square will go there. Okay, this is a half square. This is the way you would cut this block, and then this is where the way these two blocks will go in here. This one here, you would cut this block this way, and then this would be the solid red fabric that I'll be using. This would be the background, a half square triangle for the background fabric, which is black. So this is where this will go, and then you're gonna cut this block in this direction. This one here, this is a solid block, which is going to be black. You will cut your square this way, and this print here will go in this direction, and this black solid will go, half square triangle solid will go there. This is going to be the red fabric. You're going to cut this way, and then this will go here, and this will go here. Now here is the key that I have developed for my Carpenter square. Carpenter star. Quilt block, quilt design, whichever one you say it. So this square here, hi, how you doing? Oh, it's not hard work. I just took my time and drew it out. It wasn't hard at all. But the thing about it is I don't have to keep doing this. And even though this is a bigger version of the Carpenter star that I drew out, and this is a smaller version, I don't have to keep drawing this out. The size of the blocks that I cut would be determined by the size of whatever I'm working on. So even though this is I'm going to do this as a mug rug, I'm also later on going to do this as a quilt that's going to be 64 inches going across because it's eight blocks going across, 8 blocks going down. And as you come in, please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Um, this for this Carpenter star, the first thing I'm going to make in this Carpenter Star quilt design is a mug rug that's going to be a 10-inch square. And it's a square because it's 8 squares going across and 8 squares going down. Later on, I'm going to take this Carpenter Star and I'm going to make a quilt that's 64 inches across and 64 inches going down. It's going to be like a finished size of 8 blocks. So here's the smaller version of my Carpenter Star, which is very similar, but it's just the only thing different is where you put this, where this block is maybe light, this block is dark. Over here, this block is light and this block is dark. But anyway, the Carpenter Star, this block is 8 squares going across and 8 squares going down. So when I do my quilt, that's a 64 inches going across, 64 inches going down. The finished size of the blocks will be 8 inches. But for my mug rug, what I'm working on, the finished size of the block is just 1¼ inches. So as I was saying, this is the key, what I call my Carpenter's Star key. For this block, and I'm going to use the smaller Carpenter Star as a guide. For this block, okay, that represents the blocks like this. And then you come here where I do, this is basically a solid block. That's a half square triangle. But you would have to cut it a quarter or ½ inch bigger than you would the block for this block, because this right here is an additional seam. So even though this is a half square triangle, it is a solid block, it is a background block, it is not a whole block. It's not a square block. It is a half square triangle block. So you have to cut this block in the same size, the fabric for this block, as you would the same for here, because it's all, they're both half square triangles. So this is my key. So this block here represents this block, okay? This block here, which is a half square triangle, and I just count them out and determine how many I need. And for each one, I just added 3 extra squares so I can make sure if sometimes I'll have an extra one or whatever. So this block represents this block. So and then for this one, I counted out 5, 10, 15, 16. So I would have to cut 16 squares for this one, this block here. Now this block here represents the solid or background color half square triangles. So I counted out, each half square triangle represents a 1 in this number right here. So it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 33 half square triangles. And the way I counted them was like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So then I would just divide this number by 2, and I would be cutting them in half. I wouldn't have to worry about the different ways that the seam line goes. Like this seam line goes this way, and this seam line goes this way. So check that seam line out, and it's different from the way this seam line goes. So this one goes this way, and this one goes this way, which make a big difference. You can get away with solids, but prints you have to make sure you're cutting it this way and using a block in whatever position it's in. So then, since this is counting half square triangles, I just would divide this number in half to determine how many actual squares I need when I go to cut this block here, and then you would cut it in that direction. And you could rotate it because it's a solid block. Okay, so these two here is what I call sister blocks. So these are my B pattern half square triangles for the blocks that go this way. This seam line goes this way. This seam line goes this way. You have a half square triangle right there, and you have a half square triangle right there. So these two blocks represents a square with the seam line going this way for this print. So for each one of these, I counted this. So that means in my Carpenter star, I counted 8 half square triangles for this print going this way, 8 half square triangle print for this print or this fabric going this way, and then 8, so it represents 8 half square triangles. So these are sister blocks. So I would just cut 8 squares in this direction, and you will use this print or this solid half square triangle for this, and then that same fabric with it, put the half square triangle position in there, that position. Now this, and see my seam line is going this way and this way. So that's why these are, I call them sister blocks. So 8, this represents, 8 half square triangles, 8 half square triangles. So I will only have to cut 8 blocks. And then you cut the seam line, and then you have your 8 and 8. Okay? This is my sister block C. So where this seam line goes in this direction, and this is the way you would cut it, this seam line here goes in this direction for our block C, and then here it is again in this direction. So that's C with 1 half square down here, half square triangle down here with the seam line going this way, and then this is C again with the seam line going this way, which is the direction you would cut the square for this block C with the half square triangle position here with this way, and then it's going this way again, and the half square triangle is down here. So I have a total of 8 for this one in this position for blocks half square triangle C, and then I have 8. So I would need to at least cut 8 squares because it's 8 and 8. So you cut your square in this direction, and you're going to use 8 half square triangles position here with the seam line or the cut in this direction, and then you're going to have 8 of C with this fabric, whatever this fabric ends up being in this position. So then, and then for this block here, over here would be represented like right here. That's it in the down, and that's it in the up. Okay? So this is my printed. Hi, thank you. Thanks for stopping by. Please make sure you all like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. This is my printed fabric. So this is a solid print, basically. This is a solid, but this one is an outright print. So it's no cheating with this. Otherwise, it's not gonna look right. Okay, so this is my printed fabric here. And then this is my printed fabric with the seam line going this direction. So this is the way you will cut it. So this is the half square triangle on the bottom with the seam line going this way. This is the way you would cut it for this print. And this is the these are sister blocks. That means these two half square triangle designs comes with from the same square. And then this is the triangle on the bottom, and this is the print on the bottom, and this is the print on the top, and then there's the seam line, or what I would call also the cutting line. And that's the way you would cut the fabric. So for these two sister blocks, I have a total. I counted this, and I counted this in the design in my Carpenter star, and I came out with 7 up here and 8 down here. So for at least, I would need at least 8 squares. But I said I was going to cut an extra 3. So I would cut 11 and a half, a little extra. So where you see this right here, over here, let's see where it's represented. Let's see. Okay, there it is right there. See how that's 1 square. That's your cut, that's your diagonal line, and then that's the print. Okay, and then that's it right there again. So I just count them out and compare the amounts I came up with each sister block, so I can have some idea of how many I cut. So it's half square triangles being cut from the same square. So if it's 8 and 8, that's 8 blocks, but I came up with 7 and 8, so you still have to cut at least 8 blocks because you're going to need an extra one of these. Okay? And then this is what I'm calling my half square triangle E. Okay, so where you look, the seam line is going this way for this print, for D half square triangle. For my E half square triangle, it's going in this direction. For E, can you see? It's going in that way. And then for D, it goes up this way. And this, you really have to pay attention to this when you working with prints. Otherwise, if you put the D in the place of E, the printed design is going to be in the wrong position. So for E, there we go. And then you see the print is at the top left of the half square triangle. So for this block here in my key, I counted 8 and 8. So I need to, so these are sister blocks. So I need at least 8 squares cut in this print, and then I will cut it in the half square triangle this way. And then this is the top for this block, and then this is the bottom for this one. And so over here, let's see where we have this block. So let's go and see. Let me find it. Okay, there it is right there. And see that? And then you come over here. Hold on, which one? I was showing you them. Yeah, okay, this one. You see how the seam line goes this way, and the printed design is on this side of the half square triangle. It was, where was it? Let's find one. Right there. That's the design, that's the line, the seam line, and then that's the print, the top left side. That says our E block. Okay, so then one side, so that means I have 8, nope, how many is that? 8 of these half square triangles in this position, 8 of the half square triangle in this position, with the seam line going this way. So that means I would need 8 squares of this print, and then you would cut in this direction. You would have the half square triangle here, and this print in this position, and the half square triangle here, and this position. Okay, and then again, this is our Carpenter's star quilt block or quilt design. And then what I also did was do this here for what I use when I go to cut my squares. So for the solid background, this lets me know I need to cut 19 squares. The solid background is this design, this square here. Okay, so this let me know I need to cut 19 squares. So then as I cut my squares, I'll write my little sticks here in this area until I have all I need. And then my solid background half square triangles represents this block here, those right there. And for them, I need to cut 20 squares because I need almost 40 half square triangles. So you take half of 40 and you came out with 20. For half square triangle B, which is this block here, these two sister blocks here, I need about 8 squares. I had 8 of each of these half square triangles, 8 and 8. So that means it's 8 squares. You cut 8 squares for this block and this block, and you have just 8 squares total. And then you would need, of those 8 squares, you would need this bottom half square triangle here, and this top half square triangle here. And then for that half square triangle B, I need 11. And then this is C. And this is C. And it's just another 11. And I would just, as I cut them, I would write my little sticks until I had all I needed. And then for half square triangle D and half square triangle E, this is my key again. And these are sister blocks. So that means I would take this square, cut the seam line in this direction. You have your half square triangle here and the half square triangle here. Okay, and then that's E, where you see the seam line is going in a different direction than it is for E. And this is my card where it tells me how many squares I need to cut for E, how many squares I need to cut for D, how many squares I need to cut for E. Then I would take them and cut the half square triangles. Okay, so let's see. Let's put this over here. Okay. So let's go down the line. Solid background, that's this. That's this. Okay? You cut just 19 squares. Solid background, HST, half square triangles. That's represented by this here. So you cut 20 squares. When you do your half square triangles, you cut 20 squares. When you have your half square triangles, you take those 20 squares and then cut them. And you will have your almost 40 for the solid half square triangles, which is this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. You would take the 40 and you would cut the half square triangles till you had enough. Okay? For this one, half square, for half square triangle B, you need to cut 11 squares. And then you're going to take those 11, cut your seam line in this direction, and you'll use the top, the bottom, and then the top. Okay, this is C block, and this is C block. Okay, your seam line is going in this direction. So you're going to, for C, you're going to cut a total of 11 squares. Cut 11 squares. Take those 11 squares and cut the seam line so that you will have the half square triangles that you need for the Carpenter star. Okay, this is D, which is 11 again. This is the D blocks. Okay, so you would cut a total of 11 squares of that print, and then cut them into half square triangles going in this direction. This is my E. I need 11 squares for the 60 blocks E, which is this one and this one, with the same line going in this direction. You would cut a total of 11 squares. Then once you cut your squares, you would then go and cut your squares into half square triangles with the same line going in that direction. Okay, and again, what I'm working on is a Carpenter star, which is this design here, which is a smaller version, and then this here is a bigger version. And then that's some information I put over there. And then, as I stated, this will end up being a mug rug. For the whole squares, I will be cutting 1 3/4 inches. For all my half square triangles, I will be cutting them at 2 1/4 inches to make up for the seam line that goes this way. So you have to add another extra ½ inch. Again, thank you all for stopping by. Please make sure you like, share. Please share my videos. Please go and watch my other videos. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm really trying to get my subscribers up. I'm really trying to get my watch hours up. I appreciate everyone for stopping by. Thanks again for watching, and thank you for your time. Check you later. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Like. Share. Comment. Subscribe. Check you later. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye. Check you later.